This Sunday,
the Friends are coming! The Friends are coming!
Sons of Liberty, history's new scripted drama.
Hand over the tray to Samuel Adams and John Hancock.
The untold story of a group of rebels
These are our streets!
who brought an empire to its knees.
These people are asking for a war. We're going to give them one.
Let's show them what we're made of. Fire!
A 3-night special event, Sons of Liberty. Premieres Sunday at 9, 8 Central on History.
ESPN Radio. This is the Thundering Herd Podcast.
It's the Herd on ESPN Radio, wherever you may be, however you may be listening. Thanks for making us part of your day. Presented by Progressive Insurance. All of our guests via the Subway Fresh Take Hotline and simulcast on ESPNU. I am on the 31st floor in a small room surrounded by cameras, and we welcome you in today and for the next several days, as we'll be broadcasting live from Fort Worth, Texas. Now, if you've never been to Fort Worth, it's about 30, 40 minutes from Dallas. It's kind of, it feels like Texas. Great little Texas restaurants. It feels like Texas, and it's great. Second, third time we've been here. TCU's football program right down the street. Bob Schaefer, CBS News, legendary newsman, journalism school here, named after him. So it's a great town. We love coming here. It is a great town, and we got in last night. I did have to sit with Ryan Russillo for 3 hours on the flight. I did have to endure that, but I'm okay for it. So I don't talk a lot about, and I'm pretty honest about this, I think, pretty transparent. I'm a football guy. Love the NBA, love the World Cup. I can talk baseball, and I like reading about baseball. I really do. I can't watch regular season baseball games. They're too long. There's too many. The inventory is overwhelming. But baseball's always been a sport that I think has really good arguments, and it can be really compelling. One of the things where I think even really smart baseball people are out of their gourd, like Bob Costas, smart baseball people, are Looney Tunes, is when they think they can guess who used steroids and who didn't. Mike Piazza did not get in to the Hall of Fame yesterday. Okay, Mike Piazza is the best hitting catcher in the sport's history. But he didn't get in. There's a perception among even the smart baseball people that guy was a user. All right, let's first lay out the case. I am going to defend people today who you think are a little crazy. Maybe at home they're a little kinky. You're almost sure of it, right? Hear me out today. Mike Piazza's a .308 lifetime hitter. 427 jacks, 12 All-Star games, best hitting catcher ever, Rookie of the Year, went to a World Series with the, at the time, underdog Mets. We all know that at least 40, 50% of players, minimum, were on steroids. So now it becomes a guessing game because none of us really have that manuscript of who did it and who didn't. Oh, we think, we talk, Canseco absolutely admitted. Most guys don't. Roger Clemens today doesn't acknowledge it, even though we think. So my theory on this has always been, unless you've got a list of every user absolutely validated, let them all in or keep them all out. But don't be pick and choose guy, because baseball writer who picks and chooses is no different than the guy at work who thinks he knows who's kinky at home. Yeah, I know that guy is. You ever looked at that guy? Let me tell you something, folks. The little guy in the mailroom who's quirky at work, he can't afford the dominatrix. The vice president can. Yeah. Whip sound effects, please. Yeah, he's dropping 6 bills for Mistress Stephanie. It's not the quirky guy you think is lighting up a blunt at home. No, it's the sales manager, because those leather masks are expensive. He's got a collection of 24 at home. The guy at work who thinks he knows what everybody does when he goes home is the baseball writer who thinks he knows who took steroids. You don't have a clue. Let me give you an example of this. I guarantee you, you know who's taking that exit off the interstate at 10:30 going home in the industrial district? It's the sales manager. Not the quirky dude with a tie-dye shirt you think is a little off. Craig Biggio, he's clean, right? Oh, of course. That guy's clean. Square chin Christian. All right, I'm going to throw some numbers at clean Craig Biggio. He hit a home run every 42 at-bats. Then at 35, he hit a home run every 31 at-bats. 42 to 31. So he got more powerful, fewer at-bats, more home runs as clean Craig Biggio got older. It's not the way it works. Even Michael Jordan couldn't jump quite as high at 35. It's interesting. Lou Brock wasn't quite as fast at 36. Andre Reed couldn't make those catches at 35. But Craig Biggio got better. Oh, I forgot he's clean. Mike Piazza, PED user. Through the age of 34, hit a jack every 15 at-bats. The guy was stout. But interestingly, at 35, he got less powerful. He didn't hit as many home runs. Only a home run in every 23 at-bats. So his body, naturally, as it loses testosterone like all of us. Remember who's taking those blue pills? It's the 50-year-old guy, not the 22-year-old guy. Okay, so Mike Piazza's body naturally ages, not as powerful. Can't recuperate. Bat speed slows. Clean Craig Biggio, that's interesting, 35, found some power. What are you saying, Colin? I'm saying you don't know and I don't know. And you're arrogant and deluded if you think you know. Mike Piazza is the greatest hitting catcher in the history of the sport. We're talking Yogi Berra. We're talking Pudge. We're talking Johnny Bench. But writers are absolutely sure they've heard things about Piazza. Really? From who? Other writers? I've seen baseball writers. You know who they hang out with? Other baseball writers. Or you've heard it from players. Perhaps jealous players of Mike Piazza who was good looking. Star, endorsements, captivating. It's amazing to me. You think you know, but you don't know. Yeah, you don't know. I mean, O.J. Simpson, you're like, oh, O.J. Simpson's cool. Whoa, he lopped 2 people's heads off. That's not great at all. If I'd have told you, I'd have given you 50 NFL guys who would have lopped people's heads off. Would you have voted for O.J.? Whenever you see these, like the neighbor of the serial killer interviewed, yeah, he was such a nice guy. That's funny. He went to church with us. Yeah, the BTK killer. He was like a Boy Scout. Yeah. Amazing. And Mike Piazza's not in today. Seriously. How's that possible? I mean, I heard stuff. We all hear stuff.
You're in the Herd. The Thundering Herd podcast.
By the way, Craig Biggio's a really good guy and was a heck of a high school football player, could have played college football, and was a really, really good baseball player. I've never thought he's a Hall of Famer. That's nothing against him, but he goes in as a second baseman, a catcher, and a center fielder. So what you're basically saying, Johnny Bench is a Hall of Fame catcher. Is Biggio close to that? No. Okay. Joe Morgan's a Hall of Fame second baseman. Is Biggio close to that? No. All right. What about the center fielder? Ken Griffey's going to be a Hall of Fame center fielder. Is Biggio close to that? No. So he's not even close to Hall of Fame level guys at that position. But he was around a long time and compiled some good numbers, and you can make an argument in about 13 sentences on why he should be a Hall of Famer. To me, if you can't explain it in one sentence, Johnny Bench, greatest catcher in his generation, in. If you can't explain it, in a sentence, why a guy should be in, I don't want to see him in the Hall of Fame. Because it's nothing against Craig Biggio, but my point was you can make an argument that Craig Biggio, how come his numbers got better later? Now you could say, well, he moved into a different park. You're probably right. But if you start picking and choosing on these Hall of Fame guys based on what you hear, folks, you go look at Twitter for an hour. What you hear isn't reality. What you read on sports blogs is not a reality. I mean, Rolling Stone magazine had to acknowledge, yeah, that rape story wasn't true at all. We're seeing major media production companies, major media magazines, corporations backpedal. Wow, we totally whiffed on a story. going off, quote, what I read or what you hear, you don't know. Just like you don't know who the kinky guy at work is, so quit pretending you do. You don't know. Jameis Winston's dad said he's going pro. Not a big surprise. Smart thing to do. There was some suggestion he may stay in college for another year because he's a real student. He actually is. He's a real student. He decides to go pro. It's probably the right thing to do. Matt Leinart stayed in college an extra year, and it hurt Matt Leinart. He never got that money back. Now, I think Jameis Winston is a better professional prospect than Matt Leinart, but a lot of people looked at Leinart and said, God, if you're really competitive, if you're really a gamer, wouldn't you want to go pro? I think being a college kid's an amazing thing, and being a big man on campus is an amazing thing. Hey, free crab legs, it'd be a tough decision for me too. Seriously. Pro or free crab legs? Let me sleep on it. I think I speak for everybody on that one. I think he is the most potentially talented college quarterback I've seen since Andrew Luck. He's got maturity issues. But I'll tell you, when I watch him play, big, strong, he makes all the throws. Marcus Mariota is a great kid, but he doesn't make NFL throws. It's a lot of dink and dunk in Oregon's system. I think Jameis Winston has a chance to be really special. I'd like to see him go in a smaller media market, a Tampa, a Nashville, with Tennessee, kind of hide for a year, let some other star quarterback come into the league and get a lot of publicity where he can kind of go hide for a year, sit on a bench. I think Jameis, he makes real NFL throws. And that offense is generally a pro offense. Play action, sit in the pocket, look, go to the corner. So I like him a lot. I think he needs to grow up. But, so did I at 22, 23. So do I now. I just turned 51. I want to read this to you. This is amazing. It's hard to explain. Certain people are more intense. I don't have this gene, but I've met people who have this gene. Kind of legendary stories about how Michael Jordan was super competitive. Even at his Hall of Fame speech, he was sniping at people. Listen to this. Greg Bedard of the MondayMorningQuarterback.com asked Darrelle Revis what he's learned. He used to face Brady as a Jet. What he's learned playing with Tom Brady. Listen to this quote. Some of us great players, we have a sickness about just trying to be the best. Trying to be the best at our craft. Trying to do anything we can to be elite. I think Tom's got a sickness of just being very competitive and having that edge and wanting it all the time, wanting to destroy his opponents. I think from the outside looking in, he's competitive. But when you're here at practice every day with Tom and you see him work, man, it's like, wow. I see why he's so successful because of how he approaches the game every day. I have had sources through the years connected to New England. Brady regularly wins the off-season workout program. He is a complete grinder. And I remember when Wright Thompson, a terrific writer, did a story on Michael Jordan. And he was doing a story about Jordan and his then fiancée, now his wife, Yvette. And they were talking about Jordan. Now he's competitive, and he used to want to win all the arguments. Jordan was so competitive, he became obsessed with the iPad game Bejeweled. And he passed level 100, so he could officially become a Bejeweled demigod. Now, that could be a sickness. You do that when you're 11. At age 50, he wanted to lose 45 pounds to get down to his playing weight of 218. He's just different. And I don't have that gene. Some guys do. But Darrelle Revis now seeing it up close and personal with Tom Brady. ESPN Radio in Fort Worth this week, presented by Progressive Insurance. Comparing rates, get the best deal, even if it's not with them. So this has become a story. This has become a story, and I don't get it. I'll just tell you right now, I don't get it. So there's this guy named Dean Blandino. He's the NFL's vice president of officiating. He's excellent. Even those who don't like the fact he was seen in August on the Dallas Cowboys team bus would acknowledge he's dynamic. He has a tireless work ethic. He's absolutely respected. So CBS Sports had a story this morning that executives from several NFL teams expressed extreme disappointment and anger at a TMZ video that appears to show Dean Blandino out in a night in L.A. partying with the Cowboys vice president, son of the owner, Jerry Jones, Stephen Jones. That was in August. And he's among a group of guys, ladies, captured Stephen off the Jones Cowboys-themed party bus. And by the way, it's not unusual for team officials for the Cowboys, when they train in Oxnard, to get on that bus, drive to L.A. for dinner. That's what they do. They do that regularly. Now, the league saying nothing, and even the writer for CBS Sports acknowledges Blandino is wildly respected, and that NFL sources raved about him as a person and as an official, but they were still mad that he did it. And let me just say this. The Cowboys travel big. This is a guy whose job, and I'm going to read you part of his job, is to hang out with teams. Okay? He spends time often in social settings with teams, because beyond interacting in person with coaches and executives, Blandino routinely fields calls from almost every team. Some call a lot. Are the ones who call less getting an unfair disadvantage? He was visiting the Cowboys camp. He visits several NFL camps. Then at camp, they're going to dinner in L.A., invite him on the bus. Is he supposed to not go on the bus? Let me just give you some personal experience. I'm in a small wine retail business. I have to go to dinners occasionally with distributors. A distributor from Massachusetts may be wild and crazy. He's a drinker. The distributor from New Hampshire may be conservative, goes to bed early, it's all business. I don't want to offend any of them. If they solicit or suggest cocktails, oh, absolutely. Let's, in fact, drink your wine. You're doing business. And now with iPhones, you take a picture of it, and it looks deceptive or devious. Okay, the NFL is a franchise business. There's 32 franchise owners, all millionaires, all billionaires. There's no league policy on extravagance. Some of the 32 owners are low-key, some are flashy. Some party, some don't. Some are liberal, some are conservative. Some drink, some don't at all. If you're Stephen Jones and you're going around team to team, some are going to put you up at a Ritz-Carlton, a suite. Some in their town, Green Bay, don't even offer that because they don't have that. Jacksonville and Green Bay are kind of rural. New York and Dallas, Chicago are not. Certain cities can offer you certain nights and elements. Other cities can't. His job is to interact with all these teams and these owners and the marketers and the vice presidents. The Cowboys roll big. That's what they do. Jerry and Stephen Jones, Dallas area, legendary party throwers. That's what they do. So if you're in the Cowboys camp, they jump on that team bus, they go to L.A. for dinner. That's what they do. I don't get this story. It's a TMZ picture. You know, a few years ago, I was at the Super Bowl, and there were Hooter girls on the set of the radio set. And they came over, and like a marketing person for Hooters is like, you want to get a picture with the girls? And I told Vince, my producer, I'm going to pass on that because I know where that's going to end up. And that'll stay with me forever. And it's nothing against the women, but I don't want that to end up on some, I work for Disney. I'm like, I got kids. I don't want that to be out there. Nothing against Hooters, great company. But that picture lives in infamy. Stephen Jones on a bus, there's a picture. Now it rivals corruption. We got to scale back. These famous people, and how often does our president, Clinton, Bush, Obama, end up taking a picture with like an arms dealer? You know those $10,000 a plate dinners? Like every president in my lifetime, even the sleepy and uninteresting Jimmy Carter, you end up taking a picture at one of those dinners with like arms dealer guy. You can't stop that in today's world. You buy a plate, you get in, you buy access, money buys access, you're dealing with people, they're all connected to different companies. This does not rise to corruption. It's silly. Hey, Jesse Palmer's going to join me here. Look at him. Well-dressed, man. I can't even compete. I'm going denim on denim.
Colin Cowherd.
The Thundering Herd Podcast.
Welcome back to Herd on ESPN Radio live in Fort Worth. Look at Jesse Palmer and I in a small, almost uncomfortable room because we're so tight in here with all these guys. It is great to see you.
Dude, awesome seeing you. Welcome. And I love the denim on denim. I call that a Canadian tuxedo. But you can't hide money, Colin.
You really can't.
No, you can't.
So I had the most fun I've ever had because you and I are both college football fans. I love the NFL, but it was so much fun this year. And, you know, in the end, you know how the system works in college basketball. George Mason ends up in a Final Four. Are Ohio State and Oregon the two best teams in the country?
They're the two most deserving teams. I think they're the two best teams. Granted, there is a team wearing purple down the street that's kind of waving their hand right now going, hey, you saw the Peach Bowl. You saw that. But two most improved teams throughout the course of the year, playing their best football at the end. And that's why, to me, this inaugural college football playoff reminds me a lot of the NFL. How many times do we see every year in the National Football League the teams playing the best when they enter the playoffs oftentimes play extremely well?
New York Giants.
The Ravens, the Steelers, these teams, Green Bay a few years ago, wild card teams that had to go on the road. It's kind of the same way this year, I feel like, in college football, where Oregon and Ohio State were playing the best football at the end of the season, and here they are. Thank God, by the way, for the college football playoff. If we're still in the BCS era, it was predicted Bama would be playing Florida State. So.
You know what I like about both these teams? They had to overcome something. Braxton Miller, J.T. Barrett, so massive coaching by Ohio State. Oregon lost their best corner before Florida State, top receiver. Offensive line was a mess early in the year. So these two teams did not have a grooved route. I could argue that one of the things about the new college football, you're allowed to lose, but it will test you because there's more good teams. I think Oregon, if you would have gone back to week 4, these weren't top 20 teams. Oregon got dominated at home.
You know, it's why I think, if we just look at Oregon, it's why I think Marcus Mariota, you could make the argument, has had the greatest single season a quarterback has ever had. Now, the statistics we know are off the charts. But you talk about what he's had to overcome himself. They lost their 4 top offensive tackles at the start of the year. They're playing young guys. They're shuffling the rotation. He loses his all-conference center, Grassu, for 3 games. You mentioned they lost Braylon Addison coming into the season, the team's leading receiver. So you start the year, Devin Allen's a freshman, Carrington's a freshman, you got Stanford's a sophomore. Now Allen's goes down the first play of the game against Florida State. He's not going to play in this national championship game. Now you've got Charles Nelson's a true freshman. He's done better with less experience. Think of all the Heisman Trophy winners. Just Werfel, Sam Bradford, Tebow, Matt Leinart, Jameis Winston. The NFL first-round talent and the experience that was surrounding them. Think about what Marcus Mariota has done this year. The numbers, playing a 15-game season.
Both his running backs, Tyner and Freeman, are true freshmen.
Winning a Heisman Trophy, I think you really, if he wins this game, you have to consider this. It's in my opinion, maybe the greatest single season a quarterback has ever had. He's had to overcome a lot himself.
Jesse Palmer joining us in studio, our studio in Fort Worth, the Herd on ESPN Radio. There's been a lot of talk about the demise of the SEC, and I put the brakes on it last week. I'm like, I follow recruiting. They're getting a lot of players. But there is something to be said about the conference is getting stronger.
Yep.
There is a cannibalism effect going on. Arkansas is going to be top 10 next year. Florida is going to be good. Could I make the argument, though, that the no huddle, which some people like and some don't, it has really leveled the field?
I think the SEC, just to start this, is still the best conference. But facts are facts. The 3 best teams lost their New Year's 6 bowl games. I don't know if it's anything schematically. I think all across the country, every Power 5 conference has 2 or 3 teams at the top that could beat anybody else around the country. Ohio State, Michigan State in the Big Ten, USC, Oregon, UCLA, a couple years past Stanford out in the Pac-12. What makes the SEC their argument is that they're the best top to bottom. And we know Alabama, Ole Miss, and Mississippi State lost, but Arkansas, Texas A&M, Tennessee, Florida, South Carolina, all those teams won their bowl games. The quote-unquote C and D teams in the SEC won. I think it's important.
Some with routes.
Yeah, between you and I don't think bowl games is really the say-all, end-all to discussing who's the best. Because with a month off, where are the players' heads? They're thinking about the league. Juniors are wondering whether they should declare. They're talking to agents. Players treat it like a vacation. It's hard to gauge where teams' mindset is when they enter the bowl games. But I will say this. To me, it's the first time in 9 years when you ask me the question, is the SEC the best conference in college football? It's not rhetorical. I can't dismiss you and pat you on the head and be like, that's nice, bud. Enjoy. Yeah, it is. Because now I think you got to just kind of say, and think about it, because I think the gap, without a doubt, is shortening.
You played at college at Florida, then in the NFL. I predicted very easily, like everybody else did, Andrew Luck would be great. My general rule on predicting success in the NFL is just say they'll all be average or fail, because it's impossible to be great at quarterback. I mean, there's like 5 in the whole world. Jameis Winston, after Andrew Luck, when I watch him, I think, that's the next best skill set since Luck. Now, that's my opinion. You played NFL college. What do you see with him?
He has got nothing left to prove, at least from a college standpoint, on the field. He needs to go. With the comparison to Andrew Luck, I think it's a really good one, because I think X's and O's, he's absolutely off the charts. His football IQ is incredible. Understanding fronts in the run game, the control at the line of scrimmage, checking in and out of bad plays to good ones. His understanding of coverage, anticipatory throws, playing in a pro-style offense. Jimbo Fisher has sent 12 quarterbacks to the National Football League. Jamarcus Russell was a bust. Christian Ponder and E.J. Manuel were the last 2 they went in the first round. You ask Jimbo Fisher, he'll tell you without hesitating. Jameis Winston's head and shoulders above all those guys. Now, off the field's the question. If you're an NFL team, do you want that guy being the face of your franchise? There are a lot of people that think he needed to stay another year because he needed to mature. I would tell you he has a way better chance maturing in a pro city with millions of dollars in his back pocket than he does in Tallahassee, Florida.
I want him to go to Tampa or Nashville, sit for a year. Then next year there'll be a star quarterback that gets picked and starts. Then he'll start and nobody will pay attention. Like, to me, he needs a year. Go hide in a small to medium market. Let next year's star quarterback get the headlines, because I think he could really, really be good. But he needs time.
He needs to mature. I think more than anything, Colin, wherever he goes, whenever he plays, he needs a locker room that is going to accept him, that they're going to mentor him, not control him, but teach him how to be a pro. It can't be like Johnny Manziel in Cleveland. Late in the year, you get hurt, you start throwing parties, key players are coming to it, then they're late showing up for treatments and meetings. Someone in that locker room needs to stop that, show up at the party and be like, hey, it's bedtime. Everybody out. Season's not over. It's over for you, bud. It's over for you, too. It's not over for everybody else. He needs a locker room. He's going to have success early. He's NFL ready on the field. Nobody can deny that. The question is he the face of your franchise? Do you want to gamble?
Where'd you get that tie?
This was bought in London. Savile Row, brother. Like I said, you can't hide money.
This was bought at J.C. Penney, just down the street from my house.
You make it look good.
Of course I do. It's The Herd on ESPN Radio.
Geico presents Strange Savings Stories. Astronomers detected an interstellar transmission. It stated, Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more. The implications were staggering. Was the cosmos telling us we could all save hundreds on car insurance with Geico? Or did their radar merely pick up a signal from the nearby Rufus and Clyde's morning show? We may never know.
Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
So Kentucky won last night. They beat dreadful Ole Miss. And Kentucky won 89-86. And Kentucky really is not going to lose unless they get bored. Boredom can beat Kentucky. If they're engaged, they'll go undefeated. I think Duke, if they got hot, could upset them. Wisconsin, maybe if they got hot, could upset them. But they led 12-0 last night, then 18-5, and then kind of became disengaged emotionally, which you totally get. If those two teams played in the game that mattered, Kentucky'd blow their doors off. I am rooting for Kentucky to go 35-38-0 and win a title. I root for greatness and I root for history. I don't get those who didn't root for Tiger. We were watching the best golfer in a 10-year period ever. I don't get it. I don't get the people that rooted against Kobe in his prime, MJ in his prime, or LeBron now. Unless it's your rival team. But I think Kentucky, actually what they're doing, a lot of people are turned off by it. I think what they're doing is what makes America great. We resent what we fear. That's why people resent the 1%. You don't know them. I don't know them. 92% of American millionaires, 92% did not inherit the money. You resent them because they're pulling away from the masses, and we fear that. Kentucky's pulling away from the masses, and nobody likes that. They fear that, and you hate what you fear. But there's three things they're doing which speak well of the country. Their willingness to evolve. They're like, all right, these kids don't want to stay in school forever. Number two, we're going to build a new business model. Kentucky said, we're just going to become the one-and-done place. If you need to play 2 years, we're probably not the place for you. So they built a new business model. Guys like Bobby Knight fought it. They're like, let's embrace it. Number three, what Kentucky does, what I think is remarkable, is that they create this fairly instantaneous chemistry where they take all these alpha males, all these five-star, one-and-done, hotshot kids. They play real defense. They're selfless. They give up points to win. That's great. This is not Carmelo or Kobe on a wing pounding the rock trying to get a 42% jumper. They move the ball. They pass. They play real defense. They're coachable. Kentucky's great. Now, does John Calipari have a little bit of a Gordon Gekko thing? Absolutely. There's an over-the-top salesmanship that I get to turn off to some people. Totally get it. Plus, if you look at his history, totally get it. But I think what Kentucky's doing is what makes America great. Evolve, adapt, create a new business model. Don't fight it. Own it. And then create great chemistry. And then launch these young players into the NBA. Rinse and repeat. John Calipari talked about last night. They could use more games like last night, close wins.
This is all good for this team. This team needs to keep getting hit in the mouth. I don't even know how good we can be. I don't. I mean, there's things we're going to have to do if teams try to do this kind of stuff to us, spread the court, and all right, now how are we going to play? We talked about they're going to try to beat you from the three-point line and the free throw line, and they almost did.
You know, I get the dislike of the Kardashians. Where's the talent? I get the dislike of the media or the IRS. I understood the dislike of the Yankees, non-salary cap sport, years ago when they would just scoop up all the good players in free agency. But there's two or three things I don't get the hate. I don't get the hate for Kentucky basketball unless they're your rival. This is great. It's a showcase. They are launching talent. I mean, young talent goes to certain places in this country. It goes to Silicon Valley. It goes to Wall Street. If it's basketball, it goes to Lexington. It's great. It's this incredible hotbed of American basketball talent. And, you know, it was funny. I was sitting this summer having a couple beers with Mark Few, the Gonzaga basketball coach. And I said, you know, everybody always says that Calipari, you know, he can't recruit. I'm like, I don't buy into that. Like, I watch their games, and I'm like, I think he's a pretty good coach. And Mark Few said, trust me, there's guys out there that can't coach. Calipari can coach. He knows what he's doing. And Mark Few said, he goes, that's just, you know, that's become the narrative now, the easy one to sell. He goes, John Calipari is a good coach. Is he a great coach? I mean, that's all opinion anyway. He is a great recruiter, but, you know, I got news for you. That's a big part of college sports. I mean, I think Nick Saban's a great coach. He's also an unbelievable recruiter. He's an unbelievable recruiter. Yesterday, Mike Piazza did not make the Hall of Fame. And as I said earlier today, I think it's ridiculous. If you're the best at anything for 10 years, you're a Hall of Famer. He's the best hitting catcher for a decade. Well, he's the best hitting catcher ever. So if I said to you, with any sport, you're the best blank, that's a Hall of Famer. If you were the best three-point shooter in NBA history, to me that's a Hall of Famer. If you were the best rebounder in NBA history, that's a Hall of Famer. If you're the best at something in a sport, and it's fairly crucial, you know, like hitting in baseball, and you're the best hitting catcher, that's not a borderline Hall of Famer. I believe Mike Piazza did not get in because a lot of sports writers think he took PEDs. And to that I said, you don't have any idea. You hear stuff from other writers and other jealous players, but you don't know. I mean, when A-Rod first came out as a user, first time, Who wasn't shocked when A-Rod? I remember going on the air because I had a very good source inside the Dodgers organization, and I said Eric Gagne uses. People were outraged. Rafael Palmeiro pointed at Congress. I said, I don't believe him. I got death threats. We found out. You know, we don't know. We think we know. We don't know. We really don't. Get in touch with us, 1-800-FLOWERS Twitter feed. And I also said with Craig Vizio, the feeling is he's clean. Probably is. But you look at his home run numbers, post 35, he hit more and fewer at-bats. Well, the stadium was different. All right. You can make arguments for stadiums. You're probably, maybe, possibly right. But the perception is no way, absolutely. And my argument is you don't know it's no way, and you don't know it's absolutely. And don't give me the Mitchell report. The Mitchell report focused on 2 locker rooms, the Mets and the Yankees. If they'd have focused on the Dodgers and the Angels, or the Rangers and the Astros, or they go to the Bay Area and it's the A's and the Giants locker rooms, the Mitchell report gave an unfair view of steroid use like it all happened in New York. That's not true. It happened everywhere. The Mitchell report just concentrated on a couple of trainers and a couple of locker rooms.
You're in the Herd, the Thundering Herd podcast.
Look at this. I never get Kirk Herbstreit. I never get you in studio.
You do.
You're very busy.
No. I always have time. Huge. You know I love listening and watching you.
Okay, so here's the thing. I'm just gonna set the record straight. When Ohio State had that Tressel dynasty, I thought it was boring. I love Tressel.
Yeah. It's effective.
It's boring. I like the Miami Hurricanes of the 90s. I like Pete Carroll's teams. I like Urban's Florida teams. What I like about this Ohio State thing now is aggressive, and it's speed, and it's trick plays. As a former Buckeye, you've lived through the Woody Hayes. Has Urban broken through and kind of changed Ohio State football? It doesn't look anything like the previous 50 years to me.
I think what Urban's done is he recognized, because of his background and where he's been. Remember, he's born in Ashtabula, was a GA at Ohio State. When I was a senior in high school and I'd come up for games, he was kind of assigned to me to kind of look over me when I'd come in. So he's come full circle after the SEC experience. And he knows that the game has changed. From the days of Paul Bear Bryant and Woody Hayes and Ara Parseghian to where we are today, I don't know if the game has ever required more of an influence and more of a need for speed in space. You know, whether you're defending the speed in space or whether you need to be able to bring it onto your roster, whether it's Pac-12, SEC, or Big Ten now. So I think he has helped, not just at Ohio State, the Big Ten, maybe turn the page a little bit to realize that, guys, this is where college football is heading. And, I mean, 3 years. He inherited some players, but he's brought in a lot of speed. And I think for fans that weren't familiar with Ohio State, I think they had a perception of still Big Ten, 3 yards in a cloud of dust. They're going to get blown out by Alabama. And I think from people I've talked with, they were shocked to see not just that Ohio State won, but with the speed of the receivers, the speed of the linebacker, Darren Lee, the speed of the safeties. And people were like, what?
The day after I said it looked like he recruited 9 center fielders. You know, all catch and run.
Yeah.
Like everybody was slender. 6 feet, tall, agile. I don't know if that was
I guess as an Ohio State guy, I would defend Ohio State. I always feel like the great Michigan teams, the great Ohio State teams, you turn on the film of Ohio State and Miami, and despite the controversy, if you look at the Ohio State team that night that Jim Tressel had, there was a lot of team speed. It was funny. I was standing on the sideline that night with Keith Byers, who's a great Ohio State player and went on to play in the NFL for a long time, and he was ready to get padded up and play. He was so mad about all the buildup that year about Miami and all their speed, and Ohio State has no chance. He's like, we're Ohio State. We're Ohio State. Do they not realize we can run? We can run with these guys. And I thought, well, we're about to find out. Let's see what happens. And sure enough, if you watch that game, Ohio State won that game again, despite the controversy, they ran with Miami that night. So Ohio State's always had, their good teams have always had athletic ability. And I think that deep down, Urban Meyer does it. There's not a better coach in college football at tweaking his team than Urban Meyer. I guarantee leading up to that Sugar Bowl, it was all about up in the locker room, everywhere they ate, every meeting room, everywhere. The SEC speed. Man, I wish we had a chance. But, you know, that SEC speed, we just can't match up with it. He gets his team so mad at everybody. It's an us against the world mentality. Now, that's an interesting challenge now. Now you win. Now, guys like you, everybody around the country, how about Urban? How about Ohio State? This team can play. Can he keep the edge? What does he do to get them mad at Oregon? What does he do to get that team? Because that's why they're here. It's not just they have great players. All the adversity that they've been through, they've kind of rallied around next man up, us against the world. Nobody believes. Well, now a lot of people believe. How will he get them psychologically ready to play Oregon?
It's interesting about Oregon because, you know, I've spent a lot of time there.
Sure.
And I said I was rooting for them against Florida State. And this game I don't care as much because I've known Urban for years and I love him. It'd be nice to see Oregon win a national title because I have a feeling Ohio State's going to win several with Urban. I've heard this. Nobody wants to say this on the air. But I've heard this from football people that Oregon really has taken schematics out of the game. It's not great for football. It's just really track. And that the game needs to be tweaked. It's too fast. It's not fair. Do you and Urban has stolen some ideas from Oregon.
Oh, sure.
Is Oregon really playing football or is it more track and field? Are you as a former quarterback, is it kind of a turnoff sometimes where it's just a matter of let's see how fast we can do everything?
If they just lined up and played ball and they ran the same plays and they didn't go fast and they didn't give you the variety of looks, they'd have a hard time moving the ball. A big part of their success, and I say that because of the offensive line, they've got some decent players up there, but not good enough to just run this scheme and be able to be effective.
Right.
So I personally am a fan. I've talked with you this year. I'm a fan of a new rule. Something has to change in the game for me. I feel like sometimes we watch college football, I'm not saying Oregon, but college football, and it's like arena football. The tempo has gotten to be so much. We've taken all the defensive minds out of the game. They're a non-factor, and it's all about tempo and running plays. No, when they don't substitute, you better get lined up. And I'll tell you what, Marcus Mariota with 40 career starts, he's an extension of Scott Frost. He's a coach playing quarterback in this system. He senses, I call it blood in the water, better than any quarterback I've ever seen. And what I mean by blood in the water is whether it's two safeties arguing with each other because the last play, what happened on that play, or it's the offensive lineman huffing and puffing, or defensive lineman huffing and puffing, or somebody, they're not lined up right, he really goes fast. 10 seconds, that ball is going to be snapped. So in this game for Ohio State, how they get lined up, and are they on the same page? Because that quarterback on the other side, he's not just running an offense. He's reading everything that you do between plays.
That goal line play in Pasadena, Oregon ran against Florida State when the defensive linemen, they were trying to get somebody in, and they put their hands on their hips, and he's like, oh, they're tired.
Let's go. Yeah, I'm telling you, watching this game, because we're going to talk about it during the broadcast, they will be he watches, and especially after a big play, and you're kind of downing yourself. Man, what do I do? You have no time to be downing yourself. Get lined up fast, because after a big play or after a turnover, get ready because the fuse just got lit, and here comes Oregon.
What's it going to be like to lose to Harbaugh? Boy, that's going to sting. That's going to, because he's going to win some of those.
Yeah, well,
the Big Ten should redo it. Seriously, put him over there, put Urban over there. Why? They've already realigned it once. It's just better for the conference.
Can we just get back to, Woody and Bo used to say Michigan and Ohio State. Can we get back to saying, it's a big game this week with Michigan, and instead of eliminating the M for the week, and it's a big game for Ohio State, Ohio, and the school up north. I mean, it's gotten to a point where let's embrace it. This is the greatest thing for the rivalry and for the Big Ten. Is that Jim Harbaugh got hired at University of Michigan, and you're right, he's going to get them back. He'll change the culture from the inside out. But how was the last time Michigan now could line up and run the football with those big offensive linemen like Steve Hutchinson just blow you off the ball?
A decade ago.
Honestly. And everybody's talking about how he's going to work with quarterbacks. he's got to work with an offensive line. They got to establish the line of scrimmage and run the football, which is exactly what he'll do. That's the first thing he'll change at Michigan.
By the way, you live in Nashville, which is SEC territory. Now, it's northern SEC.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It's not as kooky-madooky as...
It's kind of a melting pot, though.
I know.
Yeah.
It is. It's kind of L.A. South.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's interesting because I say this all the time because I'm a West Coast guy from there, now live in the Northeast, and they say, oh, you guys are such SEC homers. And I'm like, they get 88,000 people for spring games. You're a Big Ten guy who now lives in the South. Take my audience to the passion of college football because you listen to local radio.
Yeah.
The South is different.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
It's crazy. It's a little crazy.
Now, the Big Ten has its teams that would fit in perfectly.
Ohio
State would fit in. When Penn State's rolling, Wisconsin's fan base, they're very, very fanatical. It's just something they live 52 weeks out of the year.
No question.
And let me just say in defense of you guys are homers for the SEC. We talk about what happens. You and I, everybody, whether you're at ESPN or anywhere else, when the SEC wins, 7 straight national championships, and it seems like every big bowl game, and the Big Ten struggles on the big stage, you don't make that stuff up. You report that. You talk about that. Those are facts. So when Ohio State and the Big Ten have a great day on January 1st, you talk about that. Boy, how about Wisconsin finding a way to win with Barry Alvarez? They knocked off Auburn. And how about Michigan State, Mark D'Antonio? They were down big. They fought back. Big day for the Big Ten. Maybe the tide's turning. We talk about what happens. So you're not an SEC homer. You're a guy that talks about facts. I'm the same way, and I think because we're viewed and listened to so much, people just think that we're out here blowing up the SEC. No, we're reporting what happens.
People hate what they fear. They hate Kentucky basketball because they're pulling away.
Right.
I will say people hate the rich.
But the passion in the SEC,
it's a little over the top.
I'm over the top myself for the sport, so I kind of appreciate it. But Ohio State, like I said, there's 3 or 4 teams in the Big Ten that are very SEC-like as far as that passion.
What's your fake name on the message boards for Ohio State? Do you have a fake name?
Message board.
Come on, you don't hang out on those all day?
No, do you?
Oh, God, no. They're awful.
No.
The people are crazy.
They're so mean-spirited. They have so much hate.
You got to stay off Twitter.
Yeah.
Because you have feelings. You get your feelings hurt. I don't.
I don't anymore. I learned from you, which I appreciate, about 2 years ago, that when you get one that says blah, 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 they're really rough, retweet them to expose them, shine light on them for their family, their mom, their employer. Well, yeah, exactly. So I don't take it personally anymore.
So you're not Buck Vader?
No, Darth Vader. You know, new Star Wars coming out.
New Star Wars is coming out. Hey, Vince, is that our company doing that?
Yeah. You need to start to get on board a little bit.
Well, I'm not a sci-fi guy.
I'm not either.
But Star Wars was pretty great for us.
And, you know, I blasted you. The reason I brought that up, I don't get dressed up for Star Wars like you claim I do. I've never done that in my life. But you act like you never heard of Luke Skywalker. How's a dude live in the 70s and 80s and never heard of Luke Skywalker?
Nerd alert!
No. We've all got nerdy things. I like recruiting. I'm a nerd.
Nerds!
I'm a nerd. You had a little fascination with Star Wars.
Nerds!
I grew up in the 70s, in the 80s.
Is your name on the message board R2 Me Too?
No.
I'm sorry.
You're a beauty. I love you too, buddy.
Jesse Palmer here. He's all dressed up.
Yeah, 5 o'clock.
It's absurd.
It's Euro. He's the man.
It's like a fashion item.
You and I have the look down. This is the look.
I'm denim on
And you're
denim.
not outside because it's cold?
It's freezing out.
You wuss. Can't believe you.
I won't go outside in La Jolla. Dude, I'm a beach guy.
Yeah,
Colin Cowherd.
The Thundering Herd Podcast.
For years, NFL teams have used Los Angeles to get better deals with their stadiums. More than half of the NFL's 32 teams since '94 have used moving to L.A. as leverage since the Raiders and Rams left. In fact, 18 franchises have been linked in recent years to a possible move to Los Angeles. And there's a story written by Sam Farmer of the L.A. Times. I'll read it to you. The scene was unremarkable. A white Gulfstream parked alongside a chain-link fence at Van Nuys Airport. The most conspicuous part of the plane was the large blue horseshoe near the top of the tail, the signature logo of the Indianapolis Colts. It came off as a thinly veiled message Not to the people of L.A., but to those back in Indiana worried their NFL team might leave. The Colts were looking to squeeze their city for a better deal. 3 years later, the Colts broke ground on a $720 million Lucas Oil Stadium in downtown. Indianapolis, with a team paying $100 million, and the city and the state kicking in the rest. For years, Los Angeles has been the threat. But the NFL is a franchise business. Like a Starbucks or a Pizza Hut or a Subway, you need a franchise in L.A. And I was told that in the last 18 months, and I take this from a very good source, that told me that Roger Goodell had watched the ESPYs. And he had watched the ESPYs on ESPN, and he had just watched the entertainment, Los Angeles, and what sports was becoming. And Goodell told his lieutenants, we got to get in L.A. This is what the game's becoming. It's why we've got to be in London. It's why we've got to be in Los Angeles. If we want to grow this league, sports is now entertainment. Look at the ESPYs. Look what that show is. Stand-up comedians, over the top. Goodell watched it with execs and said, we got to get to L.A. So they are now going to get to L.A. Listen, when you go to Times Square in New York, a lot of those companies that own, like Oakley's, they're not making money being there. That's not just about moving to L.A. to make money. It's about putting Super Bowls there and having a franchise like a sandwich shop in Los Angeles. If you're going to have one in Buffalo, Green Bay, Indianapolis, and Jacksonville, got to have one in L.A. Pizza Hut is going to put something in L.A. And, I mean, when Oakley's in New York, Times Square, they're paying $1,400 a square foot for 2,000 square feet. They're not making any money on that. They're paying millions of dollars in rent. You can't sell enough sunglasses to make a big profit. But the reason they're in Times Square, because tourists go, they see Oakley. Oakley's cool. It's a good brand. When you go back to your local town, you go to the internet, you buy Oakley. So just having a team in L.A. for no other reason than it's Los Angeles. If you're going to have a team in Cleveland, you need to have a franchise in Los Angeles. They're going to put Super Bowls there. And to me, I don't think you have to move the Super Bowl around. I mean, I think putting one in Detroit and Jacksonville was ridiculous. Nothing against Indianapolis, but why are we putting Super Bowls there? Miami, New Orleans, L.A., thanks for flying United. I mean, Roger Goodell said he'd like the NFL to be like a $25 billion business by 2027. That doesn't happen with more Jacksonvilles. It happens with L.A., so get it there.
Check out The Herd with Colin Cowherd weekdays from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern on ESPN Radio, ESPNRadio.com, and on ESPNU.
The Thundering Herd Podcast.